A container Reachstacker is a special truck designed to stack and transfer 20 feet and 40 feet containers of international standard in ports, docks, and yards. The overall length, width, and height of SANY container Reachstacker are respectively 11,260 mm, 6,042 mm, and 4,770 mm. It is composed of 9 systems, which are frame, boom, drive system, steering system, cab, spreader, hydraulic system, and electrical system. It is characterized in its mobility, convenience, high stability and efficiency, and more stacking layers. Spreader. The length, width, and weight of spreader are 6,042 mm, 2,240 mm, and 9.3 tons. Boom. The length, width, and weight of spreader are 10,500 mm, 2,500 mm, and 14.2 tons. Movable counterweight. The length is 3,300 mm. The outer radius is 1,853 mm, and its weight is 11.7 tons. Movable counterweight. The length is 1,400 mm. The outer radius is 1,760 mm, and its weight is 5.7 tons. Pitching cylinder. The length is 3,890 mm. Outer radius is 300 mm, and its weight is 1 ton. Frame body. 8,700 multiply 4,200 multiply 3,756 mm. Its weight is about 28.86 tons. Reachstacker cannot drive on road. It needs to be disassembled and packed, transported from the manufacturer to the customer's dock or yard, and reassembled to be tested. When transported by road, a Reachstacker needs 3 platform trailers of 30 tons, with which the Reachstacker is divided into several component sets and transported. When transported by sea, a Reachstacker needs 2 40-feet containers, one of which contains the main body of freight, and the other contains other components as specified by a transportation company. A spare mounting site of at least 25 multiply 20 meters must be prepared for unloading and mounting of the Reachstacker. Moreover, the ground base must be tough and solid. 3 to 4 workers are needed. A mobile crane of 50 tons. A forklift of 12 tons with a trailing plate or platform. An elevator. Four slings of 15 tons, 4 slings of 3 tons. One chain hoist of 3 tons. Four shackles of 15 tons or above. Several safety belts and helmets, oil barrel, cloth, and accessories. Detailed caution in unloading. Sort out the delivery items according to the delivery list. Main body, boom, spreader, oil cylinder, counterweight, attached parts and tools are all needed to be unloaded. Special attention is needed for fixing device of various parts before unloading the machine. Shackles and slings must be fastened. Components should be lifted slowly and smoothly to a proper height, and package case should be transferred as whole to prevent spare parts from being damaged and missing. Processes of unloading from truck. Transport container containing various components of the each stacker to a specified site and unload it. Open the container door to check position and package of each part. Move the accessory case out with a heavy forklift and put it in a place convenient for refetching. Connect the sling points of the counterweight and heavy forklift with slings, and drag it out. Put a cushion wood at the entry of the container to prevent the counterweight from falling suddenly. After dragging the counterweight to a certain position, lift and move it with a crane to a proper place for mounting later. Connect the tooling of spreader and the heavy forklift with slings, and drag it out. Put a cushion wood at the entry of the container to prevent the counterweight from falling suddenly. After dragging the counterweight to a certain position, lift and move it with a crane to a proper place for mounting later. Connect the sling points of the rear counterweight and the heavy forklift with slings, and drag it out. Put a cushion wood at the entry of the container to prevent the counterweight from falling suddenly. After dragging the counterweight to a certain position, lift and move it with a crane to a proper place for mounting later. Connect the tooling of boom and the heavy forklift with slings, and drag it out. Put a cushion wood at the entry of the container to prevent the counterweight from falling suddenly. After dragging the counterweight to a certain position, lift and move the pinching cylinder with the forklift to a proper place for mounting later. Disassemble the tooling bolts of the boom. Move the boom out of the tooling with a crane, and move it to a proper place for mounting later. Lift the frame body from the frame case with a crane of 50 tons, and put it in the proper place. Then start mounting of the Reachstacker. Take the assembly of rear view mirrors out from the accessory case and mount it on the frame body. Mounting the rear counterweight. Lift the rear counterweight with a crane and center its screw holes to 4 waist holes of frame tail. Adjust the ceiling height of the counterweight to position, with a 5 mm lower than its connecting surface with the frame. Put gaskets onto bolts, and move it through the rear part of the frame body to screw them into the screw holes of the rear counterweight, with a torque of 1600 minus or plus 10 Nm. These bolts must be washed and dried with locking glue gum down. Attention! The mounting bolts of the rear counterweight should be screwed after the movable counterweight is mounted. After fine turning of rear counterweight position, screw them with the required torque when the clearance between bolts and the counterweight is proper. Mounting of movable counterweight. First, remove the fixing tooling of the moving cylinder of the Reachstacker and lift the movable counterweight with a crane. Center the sliding groove on the movable counterweight to a sliding guide blocks on the frame body. And put the counterweight on the slide rail. Be careful not to crush any other spare parts. Adjust the position of the movable counterweight and fasten it with the long and short pressure plates of both sides and bolts for adjusting gasket onto the fixing counterweight with a torque of 295 minus or plus 5 Nm. Fasten the connecting seat of oil cylinders of both sides onto the movable counterweight with a torque of 530 minus or plus 10 Nm. Find the hydraulic pipelines corresponding to labels on connectors of the oil cylinder. Connect relevant pipelines, circuits, and wires of the tail light on the counterweight and bind them into bunches. Assembly of pitching cylinder. Hoist the pitching cylinder with a crane to align its lug to the connection of frame body. Assemble it and mount the paint shafts with copper stick. Tighten the fixed bolts with a torque of 680 minus or plus 10 Nm. Wedge pads between the cylinder and frame body to support the cylinder. Assemble another cylinder in the above sequence. Assembly of the boom. Check the connection between swing cylinder and the boom. Hoist the boom with a crane of 50 tons. Head of the boom should be slightly higher. Traction with rope from the ground can be applied to prevent the boom from swaying too much. Align the pinhole at the tail of boom to the lock hole of frame. Mount the pin shafts with a copper stick. Tighten the fixed bolts with a torque of 650 minus or plus 10 Nm. The bolts should have been cleared and air-dried, and coated with thread glue. Position of the adjusting shim in assembly should be correct, and gaps on the two sides should be identically 0.35 mm to 0.55 mm. Measure the gaps with a feeler gauge. Connect the oil lines and electric circuit according to the corresponding to marked numbers on pipelines and electrical connectors. Connect the boom and the pitching cylinder. Operate the truck crane to descend, and align the cylinder to it with chain hoist or crane. Mount the pin shafts with a copper stick. Tighten the fixed bolts with a torque of 650 plus or minus 10 Nm. The bolts should have been cleaned and air-dried and coated with thread glue. Position of the adjusting shim in assembly should be correct, and gaps on the two sides should be identically 0.35 mm to 0.55 mm. Measure the gaps with a feeler gauge. Find the corresponding hydraulic pipes and solenoid valves according to the market numbers on valve blocks of pitching cylinder. Connect the oil lines and electric circuits. Adjust the telescopic and pitching of boom until two motions are correct. Assembly of the spreader. Hoist the spreader at the hoisting hole at the upper of the spreader to the assembly position with a long crane belt of 15 tons. Traction with rope from the ground can be applied to prevent the spreader from swinging too much. Drive the Reachstacker slowly until it faces the spreader at an appropriate place. After the assembling direction is in control, operate the telescopic and pitching of the boom to align it to the mounting hole of spreader. Do not lower the boom by force in alignment, or the crane may tip over because of the impact. Assemble the spreader and head of boom with copper stick. Tighten the fixed bolts with a torque of 530 minus or plus 10 Nm. Adjust the position of swinging cylinder and spreader. And then assemble the pin shaft. Connect the oil circuit and the electric circuit according to the corresponding marked numbers on pipelines and electrical connectors. Filling lubrication oil. Lubrication points on rear axle, 15 points. Lubrication points on boom, 16 points. Lubrication points on frame body, 6 points. Lubrication points on spreader, 36 points. Fill the lubrication oil until a little oil overflows. Check oil. Check if the hydraulic oil, gear oil, brake lubrication oil, lubrication oil of torque converter, engine oil, diesel, water in tank are adequate before starting the engine. Fill the oil if necessary. Check the fixing parts. Check the tightening of bolts on mounting of torque converter, main oil pump, cab, cylinder, boom, spreader, rear axle shaft, connection screw rod between front axle and frame, especially the tightening of bolts on pressure plates of front and rear axle tire, connectors and flange interfaces of high-pressure pipes in hydraulic system and connectors in electric system. Check the tire pressure. Pressure in tires to be above 10 bar, or relevant parameters of the overall machine may be influenced. Check the general electric equipments. Check the working and illumination lights outside the machine, including the main light, high and low beams, lights on boom, fault alarm light, rear light, the light on spreader, etc. Note: do not turn on the working and illumination lights or electrical equipment for a long time when the generator is not running. Check the safety of overall machine. Check if the air inlet of engine, air filter, air exhaust pipe, muffler, and the voltage of battery are normal for starting the engine. Check if the gear handle is at neutral position, if the emergency button is normal. Check the functions. Drive the overall machine at spread of 15 km/h and conduct braking experiment. The braking distance should be less than 8 meters. The steering should be flexible, and the joystick should be normal and reliable. Extend and retract. Pitch the boom for 10 times. Requirements: motion of the boom should be smooth with no jamming. Parts of the boom should not interfere with each other and should be with no friction, crack, or leakage. Output of joystick should be sensitive and reliable, and the motions should be correct. Extend and retract, side shift, and swinging spreader for 10 times. Operate the twist locks on spreader for container centering for 10 times. Check if the twist lock mechanism is normal, if all the indication lights on spreader are normal. Check working state. Drive the machine with normal load. Drive the machine for 5 minutes with a load of 30 tons. Check if there's any leakage. Stack containers. Stack containers for 1 to 5 layers and then pick them up. Stack the containers for 1 to 4 layers in row 2 and then pick them up. Check if there's any leakage or damage on the machine. Test all the safety functions. After the above loading adjustment is finished, motion of the reachstacker should be correct with no abnormality. Operation of it should be safe and reliable, and all the assembly equipment should be intact with no leakage.